Mackenzie Dern has righted the wrongs from her October 12th, 2019 loss to Amanda Ribas and now finds herself on a 2-fight win streak as she has submitted Amanda Ribas in the main event of UFC Vegas 101 in the third round with just 4 seconds to go. This was a very back and forth fight because in round 1 we saw Mackenzie Dern get the takedown and hold top control with her jiu-jitsu and ground control game. She takes the first round. Then we see Amanda Ribas bounce back in round 2 with her own offensive grappling and wrestling, takes Mackenzie Dern down and holds control time. 1-1 heading into round 3, and much of the same from round 2 happens in round 3. Amanda Ribas finds herself on top, but this time Mackenzie Dern is able to threaten off of the back more than she did in round 2. Locks in the armbar so much so that Amanda had to truly just kind of sit and hold her weight onto Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie was able to then transition, reverse it, end up in the full mount, and from there went to work. No one is so methodical and patient on the ground when it comes to the submission realm than Mackenzie Dern, the multi-time world champion in the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the patience paid off as she gets the armbar submission again. 4 minutes and 56 seconds into the third round, Amanda Ribas taps before the bell sounds to head into the championship rounds. While I would say we didn't really see any more improvements from the striking of Mackenzie Dern, still kind of throwing some big looping shots. She never found herself in danger from a defensive standpoint, which of course is a positive. But one thing that I did notice was that her entry and takedown of Amanda Ribas, specifically in that first round where she controlled and won the round, was very good, very impressive, very well timed, and was really just a picture-perfect double leg. That is something that a lot of people have kind of talked about Mackenzie Dern in the past with, being so good in jiu-jitsu, but being so poor at being able to get her opponents down to the ground as easy as she would like. But here, that was a big eye-opening moment for me. Can she continue to improve that offensive wrestling in order to get to her realm of the jiu-jitsu? That is something to keep an eye on as we enter into the rest of 2025. Mackenzie Dern likes to stay active. I could see her having another 1 fight for sure, if not 2, but that comes down to what could be next. That's the discussion. I mentioned that she's on a 2-fight win streak. Her other win was against Lupi Godinez. That was in August of last year. She got the decision there. So now, 2 back-to-back wins, both over ranked opponents. Lupi Godinez, a top 15 fighter, and Amanda Ribas, a top 10 fighter, right at number 8 when this fight occurred. Entering UFC Vegas 101, Mackenzie Dern was ranked number 6, and come Tuesday morning, I would imagine that she stays at number 6, being that she beat someone 2 spots behind her. But if you look directly in front of her, you have Amanda Ribas at 5, someone who she's lost to before and not that long ago. You have Jessica Andrade, someone that Mackenzie Dern has lost to before and not that long ago. And at number 2, you have Yan Xiaonan, someone that Mackenzie Dern has lost to and not that long ago. But the woman ahead of her that she has not fought is Virna Jandiroba, who currently sits at number 3 in the strawweight division and is riding an insanely hot 4-fight win streak. Now, we know that Virna Jandiroba was scheduled to face Tatiana Suarez near the end of 2024. However, Tatiana would have to withdraw from that bout. It was not due to injury. She did come out on social media and say that that was not the reason. And now we know that February 8th in Australia, she will be challenging Zhang Weili for the championship. The undefeated phenom that is Tatiana Suarez, a long time coming to challenge for the belt. She gets that opportunity even though she didn't go through with the fight against Virna. Now, in my opinion, Virna Jandiroba, to me, is also a number 1 contender. I would have been fine with her or Tatiana getting the fight with Zhang Weili next. That's why I wasn't too big on them being scheduled to face each other at the end of 2024 anyways. But now that Tatiana did get that fight, does Virna want to wait around? Does the UFC want Virna to wait around? And if not, then it all but makes sense that she would welcome Mackenzie Dern into a top 5 matchup in a true number 1 contendership bout. I mentioned that Virna's on a 4-fight win streak, and it is against all ranked opponents. Angela Hill in May of 2022, then Marina Rodriguez, then Lupi Godinez, and most recently, in July of last year, a finish over Amanda Ribas, a former title challenger. So if Virna would go into a fight with Mackenzie Dern and get a victory, that would be another ranked opponent on her resume and a 5th consecutive victory. It would be undeniable that she should face the winner of Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. But you can say the exact same for Mackenzie Dern because she would be coming off of a victory over Lupi Godinez, a finish of Amanda Ribas, and then a victory over Virna Jandiroba, someone who is surging right now and would extend Mackenzie's win streak to 3. That, I think, is the play. Now, if Virna just gets the winner of Tatiana Zhangwei straight up, you're not going to hear me complain, but then you're left with what to do with Mackenzie Dern. So being that that is the storyline right now, I think we book it. Number 3, Virna Jandiroba. Number 6, Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie didn't take too much damage here. Virna hasn't fought since July. I don't think it's crazy to have this fight maybe in April or May, which doesn't line up too far away from when the title fight is happening February 8th between Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez. That is what I would do next. Dern versus Jandiroba, number 1 contendership bout. The winner of that faces the winner of the UFC 312 co-main event between Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez. And quickly for Amanda Ribas and what could be next for her, someone that I'm a huge fan of in this sport and specifically in women's mixed martial arts, she now finds herself having lost 4 of her last 6 bouts. However, as I mentioned on Friday's preview, 3 of those losses are in the flyweight division. She came back down to 115 here, loses to Mackenzie Dern, but it was not a fight where she was getting dominated or dismantled. Yes, she did get submitted for the very first time in her career, but it was with a measly 4 seconds to go in the 3rd round in a fight that it would have been 2-1 heading into the 4th and 5th. But also what I said on Friday is that the loser of this bout would really have to go back to the drawing board and consider what is the next step. For Ribas specifically, being that we've seen her go back and forth between 115 and 125 over the past 3 years now, what does she do? Does she commit fully to staying at 115? Does she finally commit fully to making the transition to 125 pounds? That is the biggest question for Ribas. She is still a very, very good talent in both weight classes. I felt as though her ceiling was higher at strawweight, but now she finds herself losing to Mackenzie Dern. That is the first loss at strawweight that Ribas has had since January of 2021 against Marina Rodriguez. Since then, she would have went on to beat Virna Jandiroba, the last person to beat her, may I add, and then Luana Pinheiro in November of 2023. So be sure to let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this performance from Mackenzie Dern, the submission, the takedown that she had, and the improvements that it seems that she may be making in that realm, and what is next? Does she face Virna Jandiroba in a number 1 contendership bout, and then face the winner of UFC 312's title fight between Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez? And let me know as well what you think should be next for Amanda Ribas. Do you want to see her stay at 115? Do you want to see her move up permanently to 125? Or are you okay with her kind of going back and forth depending on the availability? And now that we are done talking about the main event, let's get into the rest of the card before we head on out of here. In the co-main event, we saw Santiago Ponzinibbio get a much-needed bounce-back victory here, and he did it with a 3rd round stoppage over Carlston Harris, a TKO 3 minutes and 13 seconds into the final round. Now, I'm just going to get out ahead of this first and foremost. Maybe there's a little bit of betting bias here because I did bet Carlston Harris plus 118 on the money line in a fight that I felt he was up 2-0 heading into that 3rd round. The judges' scorecards have been revealed since, and he was up 2-0 on one scorecard, and it was 1 apiece on the other 2 scorecards. So maybe I would have lost this bet regardless. However, the stoppage itself seemed a bit premature. Don't get me wrong, Carlston Harris was definitely hurt and wobbled 1, 2, maybe even 3 times in this whole kind of 1-minute sequence where Ponzinibbio started to pour it on in that final round. But in the exact moment that the referee stepped in to stop the fight, Carlston Harris was not only attempting to clinch Santiago Ponzinibbio to keep from getting hit, but then got the break and landed a left hook. And then the referee stopped the fight. I just thought it was a bit premature. It wasn't the only arguable premature stoppage of the card. We will get into the other one here in just a minute. So my hat is off to Carlston Harris for the effort. He actually looked very good, to be quite honest. Had a very slick left jab, was landing shots to the body, knocked down Santiago Ponzinibbio 2 times, once in the 1st round and once in the 2nd. That's why I was surprised to see that 2 judges gave Ponzinibbio the 2nd round. But for Ponzinibbio, shout out to him because he is now got a victory for the first time since December of 2022, and just his third victory total since returning from a 2-year hiatus between November of 2018 and January of 2021. Next, we move to the featured bout in the middleweight division where Cesar Almeida improved to 7-1 as a professional mixed martial artist. The accredited kickboxer turned mixed martial arts fighter is now 3-1 in the UFC, 4-1 under the UFC banner if you take into account his Dana White Contender Series victory back in 2023. And his only loss in the UFC is to Roman Kopylov, someone who got a victory and competed on this very same night, and that was a split decision back in June of 2024. And he also became just the second person to ever knock out Abdul Razak Alhassan, and that is after getting knocked down himself. Another crazy bet for me, bad beat I should say, because I bet this fight to be Cesar Almeida by decision or Abdul Razak Alhassan by knockout. Abdul knocked down Cesar Almeida very badly in this first round. Cesar, to his credit, was able to get back up. They start swinging and banging, rock'em sock'em robots, and then boom, one shot, dunzo, a devastating knockout. Definitely one that's going to be talked about the next few weeks and the next few months. Cesar Almeida, a big-time performance, 3-1 in the UFC. Middleweight isn't the most stacked if you want to go toward the back half of the division. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a top 15 opponent next. If not, he's just one win away, in my opinion. And speaking of Roman Kopylov, how about this fight of the night performance that he had against Chris, the Action Man Curtis? This was a straight-up boxing match for 14 minutes and 59 seconds. Yes, you heard that right. This fight ended with 1 second remaining as Roman Kopylov landed a vicious high kick to the head of Chris Curtis that knocked him down, and referee Mark Smith stepped in to wave off the fight with just 1 second remaining. For the bettors out there that bet to go the distance or to not go the distance, that is where the debate really comes in. But in terms of a winner, I felt as though Roman Kopylov was going to get the nod on the scorecards. Now, heading into that third and final round, all three judges had it one apiece, and in this round, yes, it was back and forth, but Kopylov was definitely landing the bigger shots. He looked like the fresher fighter. He started to go to the body, and it was paying dividends, and then the head kick sealed the deal to keep the fight from going to those scorecards in case something went awry. I do feel for Chris Curtis in the event that maybe he could have gotten a nod on 2 of the 3 scorecards there by the judges. I feel for the Chris Curtis bettors, but that's just one of these things. This one I felt wasn't as egregious as the one that happened to Carlston Harris, if I'm being quite honest with you. But again, I had a betting bias. Maybe I'm just crazy. Let me know how you felt about both stoppages. And it has to be said that Roman Kopylov has won 6 of his last 7 bouts, and 5 of those 6 victories are by way of knockout. His only loss is to the surging Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who broke into the top 15 in 2024 and is coming off of his first main event victory over Michel Pereira, and is now slated to enter the top 10 with a matchup against Brendan Allen in Seattle, Washington, February 22nd. Roman Kopylov absolutely deserves to face a top 15 opponent next, in my opinion. If we currently look at the slate, Michel Pereira is number 15, Shara Bullet is booked, he's number 14, Anthony Hernandez, they've already fought, and then you have number 12, Jack Hermanson, who we haven't seen in quite some time. If it's me, if I'm the UFC, and if I'm in the matchmaking meeting on Tuesday, I'm pairing Roman Kopylov against either the number 15 ranked Michel Pereira, which would be an insanely good fight, or the number 12 ranked Jack Hermanson. If you are an undefeated prospect entering into the UFC or very new into the UFC, the last man that you want to see on the other side of your contract when you sign it is Christian C-Rod Rodriguez. And I say that because the last 4 victories that Christian has had have all been against unranked opponents at the time that they stepped in the octagon with him. He beats Austin Bashi here at UFC Vegas 101, and he does it via decision. A very good fight, very high level, back and forth, big moments for both guys, a war of attrition. The 23-year-old Austin Bashi was 13-0 heading into this fight with 8 finishes, and I do believe that he has a very high ceiling. It's just a matter of patching up some of the other skill sets in his game to reach how good he is in the grappling and pace that he can put onto people. Christian Rodriguez had incredible takedown defense, and even when he did get put on his back, he was able to get up and not be stuck down there too long. Did good in the clinch, looked strong, had good hand speed and combinations that he was landing, threw knees up the middle that really paid dividends toward Bashi as well, kind of made him think twice about some of those takedown attempts. And back to the stats that I started this discussion with, 4 wins in a row for Christian Rodriguez, all against undefeated prospects. This one against Austin Bashi. He did lose to Julian Erosa in July of last year, but then before that was on a 4-fight win streak. In the latter 3, Isaac Dalgarian, who was undefeated, Cameron Simon, who was undefeated, and Raul Rosas Jr., who was undefeated. All in all, Christian Rodriguez has won 5 of his last 6 fights. He's made the permanent switch to the featherweight division at 145 pounds, and I very much look forward to what this dog has in him next. And opening up the main card was a fight that a lot of people were looking forward to, and well, we didn't get to see very much of it because it went 31 seconds before Punahele Soriano was able to put away Uros Medici via knockout. That is now back-to-back wins for Soriano, as he did get a victory last year against Miguel Baeza. He is now 11-4 overall. 9 of his 11 victories are by finish, and he's 32 years old, right in those prime years in this welterweight division. He's always going to be down for a scrap. And Uros Medici keeps his streak alive, 13 professional bouts. All 13 of them have not went the distance. He is kill or be killed. In the prelim headliner, we would see some flyweight violence between Felipe Bunes and Jose Johnson. We would see Felipe get a first-round armbar submission just 2 minutes and 4 seconds into the start of that bout. It was his first UFC victory, as he did lose to Joshua Van in his debut last summer, and that's a hell of a debut if you ask me, to go up against Joshua Van, someone who is absolutely surging in this division right now, and one of the best prospects 25 years of age and younger. Felipe is 35 years old, but he's finished 11 of his 14 victories. 9 of those 11 are by way of submission, and he is clearly a very fun fighter. And thankfully for him, the flyweight division does not have that many fighters, so he can still make a big splash before it's too late into his career. 2-fight LFA alum and 2-fight Dana White Contender Series alum Marco Tulio made his UFC debut at UFC Vegas 101, and he got the first round knockout over Ihor Potieria 3 minutes and 4 seconds into this bout. 13-1 overall, 10 finishes, 9 of those 10 are by way of knockout. 30 years old in this middleweight division. Again, I talked about it earlier, and I'm going to say it again here. The division isn't all that stacked when you go from 10 to 15 and outside looking in. It's not crazy to think that just one more victory could put Marco Tulio in the talks to face a top 15 opponent. Jacobe Smith, probably the hottest prospect to watch for on this UFC Vegas 101 card, made good on those high hopes as he improved to 10-0 at 28 years old. He knocks out Preston Parsons in less than 1 minute and 15 seconds. It was 1 minute and 13 seconds to be exact. That is all it took for the highly accredited collegiate wrestler to get the knockout on the feet. He has finished 8 of his 10 victories by way of KO TKO, and he is a very, very high-level wrestler and grappler. But when you pair that with what we saw in the cage for 1 minute and 13 seconds, the speed, the precision, the power, oh my goodness, the welterweight division has a very hot prospect on their hands. Jacobe Smith, oh my. Keep your eyes on this man in 2025. It could be a big time statement year for him. At the end of 2025, dare I say, we could even be saying he is the rookie of the year, the newcomer of the year, and this might even be the debut of the year. And last but not least, we had Fatima Kline get her first win in the UFC. We all know that she debuted on short notice in July of last year, up a weight class at 125 pounds to take on Jasmine Jasudavicius, who is absolutely surging right now in that women's flyweight division. Whilst Kline would give it a very good effort, she would lose 30-27 on the scorecards, but now she is back to her weight class of 115 pounds, and did she look damn good against Victoriia Dudakova, where she would finish her on the ground with TKO elbows. 4 minutes and 27 seconds into round number 2. She is 7-1 overall with 4 finishes and just 24 years old, training out of the same camp as Erin Blanchfield, a top 5 fighter in the women's flyweight division. They are a dynamic duo and tandem up there in New Jersey. Look out for Fatima Kline, who could have a very big year herself, much like Jacobe Smith in 2025, and could make some noise in this 115-pound strawweight division. Dare I say, may even have a ranking next to her name as we head into 2026. So that is it for the UFC Vegas 101 recap. Give me all of your thoughts and takeaways from this card in the comments below. Did you get your fix? Did it feel good to have the UFC back in your life? It started a little slow, but man, it really went on a tear as the card went on. A lot of finishes, a lot of big time performance, and clearly a lot of takeaways here from my end, but I want to hear what your biggest takeaways were as well. What do you think is next for Mackenzie Dern? What do you think is next for Amanda Ribas and all of the other performers from UFC Vegas 101, the first card and fight night of the year? If you enjoyed this recap and you're new to this channel, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe. Every single week, I recap the most meaningful results from every card and talk about what could be next for the biggest names. I preview the best fights and talk about the biggest storylines and what is at stake heading into each card, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and if you like long-form podcast episodes, you can follow along on Spotify, Apple, and more, where episodes are released there every Friday and Monday. Have a great week, and get ready, because UFC 311 goes down this upcoming weekend, and it is an absolute barn burner to kick off the pay-per-view schedule for the UFC. See you then.